Hello, my friends, and welcome back to the Inside Out Engineering podcast, where we talk about all things emotional intelligence for the technical mind. Today, I'm joined by one of my very best friends, Gabriella Reali. Gabby builds marketing functions companies need to scale. With 20 years of experience, she specializes in the hardest marketing problems, new categories, pricing overhauls, go-to-market that drives pipeline, and she builds the strategy, team, and systems to actually solve them. She's done it across enterprise SaaS, supply chain automation, CPG, and Fortune 500 organizations. Gabby believes most companies underuse marketing, treating it as a communications function when it should be used as a growth engine that connects the buyer to the business. Her work integrates pricing, positioning, and go-to-market to elevate value, target the right buyers, accelerate the journey, and ultimately drive revenue. I am thrilled for y'all to hear this conversation. It's quite literally a masterclass in product marketing. So let's dive in. Can't wait for y'all to hear it. Hi, Gabby. Thank you so much for joining me today on the Inside Out Engineering podcast.
Hey, Nikki. Good to talk to you.
Always good to see your face. So I know this story very well, but I am so excited for our listeners to hear it. Please tell us your origin story. I want to hear what you studied, why you studied it, and then what you're doing with it now.
Sure. It's actually kind of a funny story. When I was 15, I worked during the summer, and as a reward for myself, I flew myself to New York to see family, and I stayed with my uncle and my aunt in their little tiny studio apartment, and I thought, wow, there's nothing better than an apartment the size of a closet. I totally want this. And so I got to go to work with my uncle the next day, and he worked for an ad agency, and it was magical. I got to see the creatives working, and he showed me some of the ads he was working on. I think he was working on a Samsung ad and a Hershey's ad,
Cool.
and he showed me basically the convergence of art and business. And I fell in love. At the time, I was going to an art school, and everyone around me wanted to be starving artists. I'm like, that's not for me. And and so I loved the practical, creative nature of the agency.
Mhm.
And I said to my uncle, I want to do everything that you did. Tell me what you did. And he's like, okay, I majored in communications and got a minor in poli-sci. I'm like, great, that's what I'm doing. Well, once I graduated, I was like, hey, I did exactly what you did. And he was like, oh, well, I did that because I wanted to work on political campaigns. I'm like, oh, I don't want to do that. So, so he was like, okay, for your job search, just like look at all the agencies. And that proved to be unfruitful. So my aunt at the time, well, she's still my aunt, but at the time, my aunt was like, why don't you try client side? Like, I used to work at Spike DDB. I used to be at an agency. I loved it, but I also really love client side because you get to call the shots. And I was like, you and me are on the same page there. So I started looking for marketing type roles, and I fell in love. And I've been doing that for 20 years, and I hope to do it for 20 more. And I love it.
I love it. Okay, so tell me more about the journey of marketing for you and like the types of products that you have or types of like industries you've worked in. Because I know you've worked in a lot of different industries, and I know where we met, it was a much more like engineering, mechanical, hardware type industry. And I want to talk about that, but I want to hear the journey of like what you started in and then how you ended up doing more of like the hardware, software type tech.
Yeah, I have been in so many different industries. It was almost like I had never been in the same industry twice.
Mm,
So I started out in services. So I worked for timeshare,
cool.
which is kind of funny.
We don't love the timeshare.
I I worked for home security. I've worked for a utility, which is really funny because you're trying to market a monopoly, and that's kind of funny. Um, So I've done services and then I've done chemicals and, CPG products and I've done really where I've specialized in the past few years after hardware was really software and SaaS. So I've really come to love the technical industries. I fell in love with it when I was at the chemical company because you're constantly learning and you're surrounded by all these smart people, chemists, engineers, people who really know their stuff and will know far more than I ever will, but I get to learn from them. And I love hearing them describe the products. I remember when I was in home security, I think this is when it really started. We were talking about a smoke alarm, and I had no idea how it worked, but I also hadn't really thought of it. And the engineer who had worked on these fire alarms for years and years, he's talking about how there's a mechanism in there with light, and when that light is interrupted by smoke, that's when the alarm goes off. And I was like, this is so simple, but so brilliant. And I love being around brilliant people, whether they're engineers or creatives, and using those sparks of brilliance to move a business forward.
Yeah.
And so when we worked in hardware, it was very similar, right? These things that we kind of take for granted um, are actually quite ingenious. And as I moved into SaaS and more of supply chain, that's what supply chain needs more of, and that's what SaaS needs more of, is this brilliance for simple solutions that solve and disrupt everyday problems.
Oh, this is why you're in product marketing. This is, the right thing to say. So I want to talk. I want to talk a lot about this like relationship between the scientists, the engineers, the chemists, and the creatives. Because no one likes to think that engineering or science is creative, but it is. Like I think it is.
Mhm. Yeah.
But there's a language that we don't have that you do, and you have this innate ability to tell the stories that the scientists need to tell, but we don't always know how to tell it. So, how do you bridge the gap? Like, how do you take our very complex things and make it simple, make it digestible, and talk to me about, like, the power of what that does, because I know far too many engineers that have these brilliant ideas, but they simply can't communicate them, and they don't know how to bring it to market.
It really starts with your audience. So you can have the most amazing product in the world you could have a time machine. But if you go into detail about how you built the time machine, the vast majority of people are not going to recognize a time machine for what it is.
Mhm.
And, like, what's a flux capacitor? I'm just kidding. But
Thank you, I needed that.
but when you think about your audience and who you're trying to talk to, and most of the time they're not going to be as advanced as these engineers. They're not going to understand the detail. And they're not going to want to spend the time to understand the detail. At the end of the day, the audience wants to know what's in it for me. Why do I care about a time machine? And if you try to explain the how, you're going to lose them. If you try to explain the what, you're going to lose them. You have to explain the why. Why should they care?
Mhm.
So instead of trying to explain the time machine as this complex, this is how I made it, you tell them, wouldn't you want to go back and revisit the best day of your life?
Mm, you make me cry.
Right? Don't you want to go forward and see where life is going to go and where invention is going to go? That's what we're after. Every single person is after the why.
Yeah.
That's
Oh,
the story we need to tell.
yes. Oh my god, and the why is so layered to me because there's not only, like, the why I've built this thing, but it's the why I'm doing the work that I'm doing, right? I think there's so many layers to that why, and if you have a powerful why of, like, why you built a thing, that also feeds, "Here's why this product matters. It started with, here's why I built it. I wanted to go back and relive this magical day, or I just wanted to have this moment with my mom or my dad or my siblings or my dog, like, or my best friend. I want that moment back, even for just a second. And everybody relates to the emotion of the why.
Yes.
That
And
is so
that's
powerful.
that's the secret.
Yeah.
It's emotion. If you look at um any of the literature on marketing and human behavior and behavioral economics, all of it comes back to the fact that we are emotional creatures. We try to be logical,
Hmm. Hmm.
but we make decisions first on emotion, and then we backtrack and try to explain why it's logical. And as soon as we understand that about our audience, we can better speak to them about the things that they care about their motivations, about what they're trying to achieve. And I have this framework that I often use on where those benefits really fall for people,
Yeah.
right? You can talk about the functions. The remote changes the TV channel and you don't have to get up. But if we talk about the remote at a higher level, the remote means comfort. It
Mm.
means ease. It means that I have power at the touch of a button. That's the emotional pull. And then if we even go a step further to self-actualization, that is where identity comes into play. You're probably not going to get that with a remote, but think about like a car commercial,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Car commercials are so good at it because it's like, I'm going to buy this truck because it means that I build things with my hands and I am the type of person that takes life and builds and creates and makes things happen. And you're like, yeah, I am that person. I'm going to buy that truck.
Mhm.
That's self actualization. That's a harder tier to get to, but it's all surrounding identity. And then you have this almost loyalty because
Yes.
they're like, yeah, those are my people.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
product is my product.
Yeah. Brand loyalty is so powerful. Like, staying with the car commercial idea, I am a ridiculous brand fan. Like, I don't even know if there's like I'm a raving fan of Toyota for so many reasons. Like, one, I'm an engineer and I'm obsessed with the Toyota way. Efficiency, organization, like it just, oh my God, it feeds my soul. But I also love the engineering of the cars. So like I drive a Prius. I have purchased Toyota, you should know. I have been a part of 10 Prius purchases over the last 12 years of my life. Like, not all for me. I personally haven't had all 10. I've had 3, but I've purchased and helped other people purchase because I'm such a raving fan of the Prius because of what it means for me as an engineer, what it means for my wallet. And I love it. I love it. I think it's a spaceship. I think it's like fascinating engineering. It's the coolest fucking thing in the world to me. But my dream car is a Forerunner. And
Really?
yes. And, because of what a forerunner means. Because to me, a forerunner means adventure. It means freedom. It means like you take up space and you belong there. And it's just the coolest car. And I just like I live in a landlocked state, y'all. But the way my forerunner will have a surfboard popping out that back window, regardless. I don't care where I'm going. There will be a paddleboard, there will be a surfboard, there will be something that gets me on water in the back of my Forerunner at all times. Because that is who I see myself as, even though I don't drive the Forerunner right now. I will one of these days. I will get my Forerunner. But that's like, I am such a raving fan of the brand because they have longevity. Like, you literally could buy a Forerunner that was built in like the early 2000s and it's still worth the same amount of money it was in the early 2000s, even with hundreds of thousands of miles on it. So and I'm a brand loyalist. Like, I will never buy another type of vehicle because of what Toyota means and what Toyota stands for and how Toyota makes me feel. So,
Mhm.
and you're absolutely right. Like, the idea of product marketing, it's all about connecting with a person's identity and how they want, not even just like how they see themselves now, but how do they want to be seen?
Yes. Exactly. How do they become the person that they want to be?
Yeah. How do I
Yes.
become the Forerunner girl?
Yeah.
Right now, I'm a Prius girl. I want to be a Forerunner girl.
And what our cars say about us is a lot. What we buy, what we believe in, what we put our money towards says a lot about who we are as people. And so this is no different in B2B. So I've been on the B2C side. I've been on B2B. I've seen it both ways. And it's amazing to me how different people think that B2B is.
Mm,
But when you break it down to marketing and when you're trying to sell a product that you have built, the principles are the same, right? I would say the biggest difference between B2C and B2B is that in B2B, you have way more people involved.
oh my God. Yeah.
um, and those sales cycles can be way longer. But ultimately, the principles are the same. You are selling to people at the end of the day. There is nothing that is probably more limiting than trying to say, I'm selling to a chief product officer or I'm selling to the CTO.
Okay. Why?
That's a title.
Yeah.
That's not a person. CTOs don't buy,
Mm.
people do. There is nothing, you can talk to 50 different CTOs. You could talk to 3 different CTOs. And guess what? As people, they are very, very different. So, how can we loop them all together because they just happen to have the same title at a company, right?
That's
And so
genius.
again, it comes back to your audience. Sure, there are things that they might have in common. Security is going to be important to the CTO. How it fits into the software stack is going to be important to the CTO. And those are considerations. There's one small part of the consideration. If we don't dig deeper into who people are and group them according to what their motivators are, what their behaviors are, what their problems are, you're going to lose them in your messaging. You're not going to be able to sell a product, and it could be the best product on the market. It could be a time machine, but they're not going to listen because you're trying to talk to a CTO instead of a person.
Okay, so how do you do that? How do you, cuz I know so many organizations that's like, and you take a business class, it's like find your ICP, who's your ideal client profile? Like, what's their job title? What do they do? What are their motivations? But it's not go find an actual CTO and talk to that person. How do you bridge that gap? How do you go from, "Hey, we're making these, like, data-driven decisions," to, "No, I just gotta go talk to real people and ask them real questions?"
It's a combination of both. It's not either or. Both are types of data. And so you have to start with research. And I'm a big fan of primary research because at the end of the day, if you try to take research from a third party market research, they've done their own thing. And they're looking at an industry that's very broad and they're trying to break down the industry, but they still won't tell you who is buying at an individual level. So I like to start with survey data. I like to start with survey. And the reason why the survey is a good starting point is because you can get a lot of answers from a lot of people. And if you ask the right questions, you'll start to see these segments arise if you ask them about their behaviors and motivators. And then you can ask questions such as, are you interested in this type of product? Especially if your product is new and it's disruptive. And you can gauge what group of people are more highly inclined toward your product, or um, even if they're more highly inclined, which ones have the money to spend, or want to part with their money. That's important. How much are they willing to spend? So there are all these factors, both economical, behavioral, that firmographic, that we have to look at and analyze and group before we do anything else. This gives us a starting point for who we're actually trying to go after, and it gets us closer to who that ICP is from a macro level. Then we start going a little bit deeper. Now we actually have questions that allow us to find those people specifically that are inclined toward our product. And once we start once we're able to do that, now we can have conversations with them. And you can ask those tough questions. There was a point where, and I have all my teams follow this process. Um, I was working on a robotics product, and one of the people on my team, she's been working on this project for several months. She's done the survey, and now it's time to go into qual. So she sets up these interviews, and I kept asking her questions because she had all these great answers, but I was like, okay, what are they looking for? Why do they care? What is their problem? That is the key question. What is the
Mm,
problem that they're trying to solve? And I call it job to be done. What's their job to be
mhm,
done? Now, here's the thing about job to be done. We can very quickly fall into this quagmire of a functional focus,
mhm,
but there's so much more underneath the surface. So that's just a starting point. So you start with this job to be done. I said, what's their job to be done? But what is their tension? That's the second question.
mm.
What is their tension? Why can't they just do it?
Isn't that a question we ask ourselves every day? Why can't I just do
Yeah.
it?
Why can't I just do it? It's like if you have a lawnmower, the job to be
Mhm.
done is cutting the lawn. It doesn't
Yeah.
even have to be done with a lawnmower. You could use scissors if you wanted. That would be crazy, but you could. But the job to be done is to cut the grass, and there's
Yeah.
many different ways to do it. You could have someone else do it. You could do it. So there's options. But
Mhm,
why aren't people taking the step toward the option that they might want?
mhm.
Well, I want to cut my own grass. Okay, great. Why aren't you doing it? It's long. That is where the magic is, right?
Mhm,
I'm busy every Saturday and Sunday. My schedule just doesn't allow for it. I'd
mhm,
love it, but my yard is huge. I want to
mhm.
spend time with my kids instead. I travel too much. I don't have a lawnmower. I had a lawnmower, but it broke.
Mhm,
And when you start asking these questions, now all of that quantitative data starts
mhm,
to take shape. It starts to look human. And with the robotics project, the woman on my team was diving in, and she's like, there isn't an answer. I
mm,
said, what do you mean? She's like, they all know the job that they want to do. They want something that can look at a box, identify it, and move it to where it needs to go. But there's boxes on top of boxes, and there's products on top of products. And they can't really, the technology really isn't there in one solution that that allows the machine to visualize, pick, move seamlessly.
mhm,
And so she's like, these people are constantly trying to cobble something together on their own because they don't see another solution. And so their tension is I'm trying to build by talking to all these third parties and getting them to work together. And sometimes they don't want to work together. Sometimes the software doesn't work together. Sometimes I don't trust the vendor. There are all these problems that then crop up from that. And now you have a story. Now you understand your buyer. Now it's less about the fact that they're a CTO or transformation officer or whatever. They could have a billion different titles, but their problem looks very similar. And now in your messaging, you can tell that story back to them and they're like, "Oh yeah, that's me. That's what I'm trying to do. Tell me the answer.
yeah.
I haven't found it yet."
Mm,
And that's exactly what she did. And that was a very Very positive campaign. It did very well at shows. It did very well on website, brought in leads because she found out what the actual tension was and resolved the tension for the buyer.
I love that key point because it's not just, "Hey, I have a solution." It's, "No, here, I have to show you that I know your problem. I have to show you that I understand the pain that you're in before I say I have a solution." Because I mean, even me, right? Doing what I do, I can't just go out there and be like, "Emotional intelligence for engineers. Just do it." Okay. Why? Like, what?
Exactly. Why?
Like, why should I do this? What problem does this alleviate for me if I do this thing? It's really hard. It is hard for us engineers to be like, well, here's the solution. Why do you want me to waste my time talking about the problem when I have the solution? No, you have to talk about the problem because how do I know it's the right solution for me if you don't tell me that you understand my problem?
Yes. To me, I call that bridging the gap, right? Your buyers are on one side of a massive canyon and there's one bridge and you're on the other side and you're like, come across the bridge. Come over here. And they're like, no, no, no. Like, I'm okay. I don't trust that bridge, this big canyon. I don't know you. And that's a big mistake that a lot of people make is that they start with like, hey, I'm really great. Come over here and be with me.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know you. I'm
Yeah.
not, I don't know you. I'm not trusting you in this bridge. But if you're like, hey, over there on that other side, that grass, it's getting a little stale, isn't it? I'm like, yeah, I can't grow what I used to. Yeah, I know. You can't grow what you used to. The nutrients just aren't there anymore. The crops are kind of tasting stale. They're not growing the way they used to. They're like, yeah, how'd you know? It's like, I've been there. I've seen it. It's like, the answer is really simple. You just need new soil. You need a new place. And you need a place that isn't too far. Yeah, exactly. I have a family. I have things that I need to bring with me. It's like, yeah, exactly. Wow, I have a solution for you. This soil over here, it's great. Look at look at this watermelon that I that I grew. It's huge. Like, oh yeah, that is a that's a huge watermelon. So let me pause right there in the story. You've connected with them on the problem. So you've already bridged to their side. And then you've talked about how you can solve that problem. Fertile soil. And then you've said you've given them proof. Look at this giant watermelon I just grew in this soil. This could be yours.
For the low, low price.
If you love watermelon, which most people do. And at that point, you have said nothing about yourself because you do not matter. They
Nope.
matter.
Yep.
And so they're like, yes, that's what I want. That exactly. I want to grow watermelon like that. How do I do that? Come over to my side. Come over here. I built this bridge. Oh, how do I know? 500 people have crossed this bridge safely. There has never been an issue. Now you're starting to get the objections. That's a good thing, right? In the sales process, salespeople love objections because those objections mean engagement. It means tension. And the salesperson is there to resolve it.
Yeah.
So now you start giving them proof of you. I built this bridge. I'm an engineer with these credentials. 500 people have crossed it. 500 more will tomorrow. It's a big bridge. You should too. And come grow your watermelon. And that's effective messaging. That's when they're going to listen to you. Because you didn't start with yourself. You started with the problem that bridged the gap and got them to listen.
Gabby, that honestly, that was like a masterclass in product marketing and sales. Like just that, like 3 minutes
There's so
alone.
much more. There's so much more. But yeah, it's the foundation.
Yeah.
That is what that's what marketing and sales does. And that's the thing. I think a lot of times in business, we kind of see these different departments as zero sum, right? Like my budget is at odds with their budget. What I'm trying to do is at odds with what they're trying to do. But ultimately, we're all part of the same value chain. And if we stay focused on the customer, we can see that, right? Those people wouldn't have been able to cross the field without the engineer. And the marketer helps to tell that story, and sales closes it and makes sure it happens and fosters the individual. I often see marketing and sales as like the macro and micro of the process, right? We need that individual touch that sales can provide, but we need the macro view to get started. And we need a product to start it all. And that's where all of these minds come together. We're not at odds. We shouldn't be at odds. We have the same goal,
Hmm.
ultimately, is
Yeah.
grow the business and serve the customer.
I I love the way you've simplified this because it does always feel, I know, like the engineering and sales trope is just it's there, right? Engineers don't get along with sales. We know it. And I I feel like product marketing is this like beautiful middle ground where they understand I need to connect with my engineer. I need to understand enough of the product and enough of the technical why behind it so that I, as the product marketer, can help the salesperson sell it. Because sales doesn't do it on their own, as much as every salesperson probably thinks that they do. They still have to have product marketing, the collateral, the storytelling, all like everything you just described is not something that a salesperson does. It's something that product marketing does. And I think I know at least in, the spaces we've worked in together, there's a misunderstanding of the value of product marketing, and there's this line that seems to get blurry between sales and product marketing and just regular marketing.
Mhm.
Um, so can you I've seen you do this so beautifully before, so I selfishly would love you to walk me through it again. What is the difference, and what is the real impact and value that drives the fact that marketing is different than product marketing, and why is product marketing so important to both the sales and the engineer, besides just these amazing stories you've already told me? But I want to know the technical differences and why those lines get blurry.
I would say the main task of product marketing is exactly what you said, to bridge that gap. Product marketing needs to understand enough of the technical to represent the product accurately. So they're going to get in really close with engineering and make sure that that product is brought to life accurately and that all of the hard work that the engineer has put in pays off and builds the company. So they do that by taking that technical information and translating it for the buyer. They do a bunch of research to understand the buyer. They then put together strategies and messaging that's going to make sure that the buyer understands the product and wants the product, because they know it's going to be good for themselves. And then we package that up and we provide training to sales. It's not technical training. It can be, but for sales, it needs to be story driven so that they can repeat those stories. And it needs to be, they need to know what type of support they're going to get. So product marketing works very closely with Marcom, as it is in a bunch of companies, to make sure that those are brought to life in more than just the sales channel. Because I think it's 8 touch points that are required for a buyer to start interacting and listening to a message. 8. So if we can drive that product and brand recognition as top of mind 8 times through digital channels, some companies use traditional channels, then the salesperson has an easier job. Because what we find is that most of the time these buyers want to be educated. They do a lot of the research themselves. In fact, before they've reached out to a company, most of them have already done their research and they're reaching out to you because you're in the final group. And so at that point, sales is ready to close. But they need that support ahead of time because buyers don't like to walk into a situation and feel unprepared, right? Think about when you go to buy a car. You're doing all this research, you're looking at the specs. All right, I have it narrowed down to 2 cars. Let's go to the dealership. So, buyers, if they want to be educated, we need to provide the information and, first of all, build the awareness so that they can find your product in your company, but then help them go through that entire journey until they can talk to sales and do the demo or whatever it is. I would say another misconception is that, um, this is going to be a hill I die on. But there tends to be this line, particularly in B2B, between product marketing and marketing. And that is the start of the fall of marketing as a whole.
Tell me more.
So in B2C, product marketing doesn't really exist because it already exists. So in a lot of CPG companies, marketing runs the business. They make decisions about the business, pricing. Um, uh, they own the brand and they own the products within that portfolio. So they'll work with engineering directly. Then they'll work with the channel partners, meaning the person who actually reaches out to the retailers. And they'll work with the designers and the agencies. And they'll work with, so they are it's a hub and spoke model, but this brand manager is essentially the product marketer as we know it in B2B. And they run the business through the help of all of these other functions that have their specialty. But they're the ones who decide the positioning, the messaging, how, and then they work on refining it with the agencies. But they run the strategy. And that's really what product marketing has become in B2B. The problem is that B2B is years behind B2C. B2C had to get good really, really quickly. But for a long time, business to business relied on those relationships. And marketing was seen as not really necessary. It was like, well, Jim knows he needs to buy a truck and he only has a few suppliers to go to, and we're one of them, and we don't need marketing because we have enough of a pipeline. But then B2B got smarter and they saw, oh, wait, you know what? We're losing share to this other truck company because they have these ads everywhere. We need to do the same thing. So they built a Marcom function for advertising. And they didn't think so Marcom in B2B became a support function.
Mhm,
I need an ad, I need a white paper, sales needs this. And
mhm,
they became order takers.
mhm.
And they did not have a seat at the table. There was no CMO. And then they said, you know what? One of the issues that we're having is the Marcom people that we've hired can't tell the story of the product, especially if the product is more complex. So how do we bridge that gap? Oh, we'll bring in a group, we'll call it product marketing. It'll be kind of different than product marketing. It might sit in product, it might sit in marketing. We don't know. We're just going to place them in there. They're not going to be reporting into a high-level executive most of the time. It's going to be one person who's expected to do everything themselves, and maybe we'll hire more if we see it working.
Mm.
And so now we have this line, and I've seen it in conversations with other product marketers. There's this line, this dividing line where it's like, oh, we're not marketing, we're trying to run the business. It's like, no, we are marketers. It's the 4 Ps. It's product, place, price, and promotion. And so those are the 4 Ps. That is what marketing needs to be doing. But we're like, oh, well, Marcom's going to be responsible for placement, and then product marketing is going to be responsible for the product. So we're splitting it up and calling it 2 different things when really it's the same discipline. All of marketing needs to be responsible for driving the business. Everyone in marketing needs to know what the pipeline looks like, what do sales look like, how much revenue are we driving, what are these product launches doing, how is this campaign doing, how are we improving. But marketing is not held to that standard because they are seen as a support function. They don't help drive the business. That's a mistake. Product marketing and Marcom should have the same job, which is the job that everyone has: drive the business. And so the separation between product marketing and Marcom is necessary right now in terms of where we are in our marketing evolution, but it shouldn't be. It is the same. I cannot do my job without channel experts to run the ads, to build the ads, to modify them, to make sure that we have thought leadership that's supporting the events that's going on, to basically bring the strategy to life. But we need to be realistic about what is actually going on within marketing. We need to have product marketing as that strategy driver, and we need to have the execution arm of marketing. And they're one in the same. They have to work together. They are doing the same thing. And once everyone in marketing understands how we're driving pipeline, how we're driving revenue, how that converts to EBITDA, how does that drive the business forward, only then do we deserve a seat at the table. And I believe we need a seat at the table. So that's my
Thanks for coming to the
my
TED Talk.
I had this debate on LinkedIn just like last week, and I'm like, no, you have it all wrong.
LinkedIn's
But yeah, I
really
will die on that soapbox.
Well, no, I love it because, I mean, even the concept product marketing, it's new, right? Like that's
It
not
is.
the idea that it has been spun off just means there's people in marketing that are like, I don't want to be technical. Let me just like section off a group of people to learn technical things because I think I'm too creative. I can't be bothered to learn about the product. That's your job. That's literally your job. I don't know. Like
Yes.
I'm with you. 'Cause like, I mean, my entire concept of marketing, one, comes from you, and two, comes from Mad Men. And which I've unfortunately learned is obviously not marketing today because no one's smoking cigarettes, no one's drinking whiskey, and nobody has assistants. So, there's that.
That
Um
is all true. I was gonna say a couple of other things, but
Yeah, I think we all know what those are. But yeah, I think it's this, like, and I think we've seen it in a lot of industries too. Like, even when I think about the breakout of solution engineering or sales engineering, it's just this, it to me, it sounds a little bit like the same thing. A salesperson not wanting to learn enough about the product. So they're like, "Pff, let me offload it to that guy. Let me get
yeah.
let me get an engineer with social skills instead of me learning enough about the product to actually answer these questions. I'm just going to have somebody else do the hard work for me. And I'll just get to take you out to drinks and dinner and wine and dine you, you know?" And I'm like, and you make the big bucks. You're the one that gets a commission. And I'm the one that has to close the sale. And you just get to go out to dinner and make friends. I mean, to be fair, I selfishly am like, I am really good at that. Why am I not in sales? But I I'm too technical. I'm very good at, and oh, you want to know the exact specifications? Or like, you can't say that. I'm like, oh, why? Tell me why. Which is where sales engineering comes into place. But I digress. So to me, I think it really is just this like interesting evolution of, and I wonder, this may be more of like a philosophical question, but because I see this in a lot of organizations, there's this idea that we're either overloading somebody or they don't have the background to do something. And so we like
Mhm.
create two separate jobs when at one point it was one job. And I know, especially in this like age of AI where everyone's like, let's outsource everything to AI. I think that is a bubble that will burst and we will come back to humans are very necessary. And I think we all know this, but we're just going to play with the new toy because that's what we always do. We're humans. We like shiny things. Um, but it feels to me like we've tried really hard to kind of break roles into smaller roles instead of just going back to what we knew worked. and one like, I would love your take on this. Like, did it was marketing just not working really well, and that's why they were like, "You know what? Let's just get a product marketing team," or is it, "Hey, we're just so big, we can't do everything, so now we need to bring on another group of people?" Or so
I
this
think the misnomer is in creating a new department rather than a new role. We're always going to need specialized roles, right? There's efficiencies that come with role specialization, and in having that specialization and those specific group of skills, we can then kind of join hands and build something bigger. So I'm a big believer in that. I think by trying to create a different department, I think that was the mistake. Because when I look at product marketers, they are going to be more technical. They are going to need to be able to dive in and be curious and like really put together the technical aspects of whatever product they're working on. Um, I think that when we're talking about there are always going to be specializations within marketing because there's a lot being asked of marketing. And I think we need those specialized roles. The person who knows SEO and display and uh, social backwards and forwards, not just the, oh, I'm going to post a social post, but really understanding the mechanics of these programs and being able to keep up with technologies as they change and being able to drive that channel strategy so that it produces for the actual overarching campaign and ultimately business strategy is necessary. The problem where we run into is that we're trying to separate a division of marketing and in some cases divorce it all together to where it sits in product and away from marketing. And we're drawing that distinction because as we've come to know it in B2B companies, that Marcom is not technical. They're technical in a different way, right? They're looking at the software stack that they need. They're and that's, marketing operations. Or they're looking at their channels and they really know that well and how to manipulate those levers as the channel team. And so there's already been specialization in marketing because we need it. Not everyone can be an expert in anything. Otherwise, you have this generalist that really can't do much in a 40-hour or even 60-hour work week. So the specialization's important. I think in my experience, what we need to do is empower the marketing team as a whole more so than we're doing. We need to give them a pipeline goal. We need to give them pricing. That's polarizing. A lot of product marketers do not want pricing. They are scared of it.
Why?
It's interesting. I just put this in a post on LinkedIn. I was at a conference and there was an executive, he was a VP, got up in front of everybody and was talking about how he built this team and he kind of took different teams, put them together and like created this product marketing team and hired a bunch of people. And they tried to give him pricing and he said no. And meanwhile, I'm there to talk about pricing, which I thought was very ironic. Because like shortly after, like I rewrote my entire presentation after that, like in a day. I was like, oh no, we need to like fix some things here.
I love this.
Because what I realized is that marketers are afraid of the finances. They're afraid of pricing because they're afraid of the math. We cannot be afraid of math. We are running a business.
What?
Yeah, so
Wait,
we
wait.
need
I need to pause here for a second. Help me understand this. How can you market something if you don't know its value to your customer?
exactly.
I don't
And this
understand
is
that.
why this is another hill I'll die on. Marketing needs to own pricing for that very reason, what you just said. Because amidst that problem that your customer is facing and their drive to solve it and their motivators and the way that they're trying to cobble together a solution that is not working is how much would you pay for a fix that actually worked? How much are you willing to pay? And then that is the value for your product. And that's the thing, that's another part of segmentation. If we take sunglasses, for example, I will not pay $200 for sunglasses, but my sister will. She has these awesome Dolce& and Gabbana sunglasses. They look great on her. She paid $200 for them. I will pay no more than $25 from the drugstore. But I know
Yep.
where to get my sunglass, right? Like that is
Yeah.
my willingness to pay. I know
Mhm.
that I'm not going to get something that great. That's
Mhm.
okay. That's my value driver for sunglasses. I'm going to go into a convenience store or a CVS and I'm going to buy cheap sunglasses. And she's going to go to Sunglass Hut or some other retailer and she's going to buy her $200 sunglasses. But we have to understand what our segments are willing to pay
Mhm.
in order to set a price.
Mhm.
But instead, we have sales setting a price for the individual, not understanding what that individual secretly is willing to pay. And not just the individual, right? That company, that buying pod, if
The
we're
industry.
in
Yeah.
B2B. And so again, we come back to the 4 Ps. Pricing is one of the 4 Ps. It is the lever that we have to convey value. And we have to do it with messaging and we have to do it in the places that we advertise and we have to do it with the product, right? You can make a more expensive product, you can make a less expensive product, and take costs out of it. But price is another factor. We
Mhm.
cannot be afraid of the financial aspects because that is what we have to drive. Everything in a business comes down to the finances. Every company has to have a CFO. Doesn't even need to have a CEO. It
Yeah.
has to have a CFO if it's publicly traded. And so in that in that case, you need a group that's doing the research, that's understanding the target audience, that's going to do the research to understand that willingness to pay.
Mhm.
And again, it cannot be separated from the same group that is trying to place those ads, that is trying to run the strategy for what we're going to say to the buyers. All of those pieces are one. And just because businesses have cut them up because they don't understand marketing
Mhm.
is it is besides the point, and in my opinion, it's a huge mistake.
Mhm. No, I agree with you. I I appreciate that, and I appreciate you breaking down the money aspect because I think that's another reason why even engineers kind of run away from sales. It it's not that we're not good at math because most of us are good at math.
You guys are amazing at that.
Yeah, we are. We're pretty good. Me, not so much, but most engineers, yeah. Um, but I think it's this, like it's the money aspect. Like, I could look at numbers all day long, but as soon as there's that emotional component to like, "Oh, no, there's money on the line," which means there's a big consequence of what I put out there, right? Is it too high? Is it too low? Am I gonna scare people away, or am I undervaluing myself? Am I skewing the market if I price myself this way? I think there's so many. I know me as an engineer, those are the things I think about.
Considerations, yeah.
Yeah, I got to think about those things. And I'm like, oh, it's too much. I'm just really good at the thing. I'm gonna go do the thing. You guys figure it out. Let me know. This is what I'm gonna go do. But no, I really appreciate you breaking it down like that. Gabby, you are like the queen of this for me, and I want to know how can people get in touch with you so that they can benefit from your services and they can benefit from all the things that you're so inherently good at.
I'm on LinkedIn. I would love to connect. I would love to talk and chat about these things. I'm very passionate about them. I'd love to talk to people who are trying to break into marketing, um, people who are veterans and compare notes. If you disagree with me, I want to know.
Yeah,
I want to
me.
know what I'm missing, and I want a chance to convince you that I'm right.
Yes. Oh, I love you. I love you so much.
So my LinkedIn is Gabriella Reali. So Reali. And I would love to have these conversations.
Well, I will make sure to put your LinkedIn in the show notes. And thank you again so much, Gabby. This was so
Thanks for
much
having me.
fun. Oh my
It
God.
was fun.